Good evening and welcome to the North Metro Mayors Association Candidate Forum for House District 35A. I'm Sarah Stroman. I'm the mayor in the city of Ramsey and a member of the North Metro Mayors Association. And on behalf of North Metro Mayors and the city of Ramsey, I want to welcome our two 35A candidates. To my right, Mr. Peter Perovich, and to my left, Ms. Abigail Whalen. Thank you both for being here this evening. Also, welcome to our audience. We appreciate you being here and your participation. We're looking forward to that as time allows. The North Metro Mayors Association was created in 1987 as a nonpartisan organization advocating for issues and opportunities of importance to Twin Cities North suburban citizens and cities. Our goal in sponsoring tonight's Legislative Candidate Forum is to provide citizens with an opportunity to learn about the candidates' ideas and positions on issues that we believe are important to the future of our communities. We regret that we cannot cover all issues of interest tonight due to time constraints as we focus on city and state governance questions. We expect there will be other forums where other issues will be addressed. We will pose 4 questions that were sent to the candidates prior to this evening's forum. We will go in rotating order with set time limits on the answers. We would note that these time limits are maximums, not minimums. We will also solicit questions from the audience, and we'll use as many of your questions as time permits. Please write your questions on the note cards that are available in the back of the room and give them to our North Metro Mayors Association staff. Mr. Bob Benke is here to collect your questions, and he will then forward them to me. Questions will be addressed to each of the candidates, so please refrain from asking questions that are directed to only one specific candidate. We did do a coin toss prior to the forum to determine the starting order, and so we will begin our opening statements with Mr. Perovich. Mr. Perovich, you have 2 minutes for your opening statement.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor Stroman. Again, my name is Peter Perovich, and I live in Ramsey. I grew up in Anoka. I graduated from Anoka High School in 1980. I reside with my wife Sally and our 4 children, and all 4 of my children are in the District 11 school system, ranging from 17 down to 9 years old. Well, one of the reasons that I am running for this office is, the needs of our community match those of similar communities around, especially around the metro area. And we have experienced in the last couple of decades some pretty harsh inequities on our share for us in this community of funding from the state. That's apparent with the way our highway system is. We have to fight every couple of years for dollars for our schools, and I think that through the years that we've just been flat out kind of put on the back burner. And these kind of inequities are something that just can't continue to go on. We need representation that is going to fight for us right here in this community. And I am that person for that. And that's exactly why I'm running. I will dedicate myself to doing this. Fighting for us right here in Anoka and Ramsey and making sure that we're getting our fair share. Because we do exist. This is a great place to live. And we want to continue to be a great place to live, but we need to have some great economic growth here. We have a tough time sustaining our growth here. And a lot of it comes from the way that the money flows up into this area. And I want to get down there and fight for us. Thanks.
Ms. Whalen, your opening statement.
Thank you, Mayor Stroman, and thank you all so much for being here tonight to learn more about the issues. Thank you to the North Metro Mayors Association for hosting this event. As mentioned, my name is Abigail Whalen, and I'm looking to serve Anoka and Ramsey in the Minnesota House. I was raised in Anoka, graduated Anoka High School, and then went to the University of Minnesota, where I earned my degree in political science and history with a minor in economics. During that time, I interned at the Minnesota Senate, which actually led to a position working for the Senate. And then I was offered a scholarship to the Humphrey School of Public Affairs, where I earned my master's degree. So first off, I can tell you I love policy. I also love this community. Having worked in and around the community in various jobs over the years, I can tell you that our work ethic, our can-do attitude, and our generosity never cease to amaze me. And over the last several months, outdoor knocking, I've had people offer me water, pop, muffins, even bug spray on a night the mosquitoes are particularly ornery. And so I've just been really blessed to get to know everyone more, and I really owe this community a lot. And I believe my generation needs to be represented in St. Paul. Right now, we're saddled with $17 trillion in debt at the federal level, and at the state level, we just continue to spend more, 15% increases over the last biennium. And my generation, the millennial generation, is going to be footing those bills for years to come. I believe we should have a seat at the table. I'm not saying the legislature should be only millennials, but neither should it be only one of every age group. We need a mix. And I think my perspective as a millennial is an important one that we need in St. Paul. We have a voice, and we're frustrated with the way the government continues to spend and tax and sell our future. It's just unsustainable. So when I heard Representative Abler was stepping down, I felt in my heart that this was a good time for me to step up and give back to the community that has given me so much and be part of the team that'll bring Minnesota into the future.
Thank you. We'll now move into our prepared questions segment. Again, we'll continue with our rotating order. We have 4 questions. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer the question. We will also have a response period of 45 seconds. So, Mr. Perovich, the first question will go to you first, and then Ms. Whalen, you'll have 45 seconds to respond, and then you'll have your 2 minutes to answer the question as well. And then Mr. Perovich will have time to respond. So, Mr. Perovich, the first question is, what are the top 3 issues you hear while campaigning? And if elected, what will you do to ensure that the 2014 House works in a collaborative way with the Governor and Senate to address those issues?
Well, I guess you hear all kinds of different issues as you're campaigning. And I guess what resonates the most, obviously, is our infrastructure. And particularly our infrastructure right here in Anoka, in Ramsey. You hear a lot about people talking about they can't get home in time to do things with their kids. I can't go to the kids' ball game. I can't go to the kids' concert. There's nights I miss dinner with the family. And I understand that, and I've experienced that many times myself. I miss my son's football games all the time because of the way everything is structured around here. That's one of many. Education. What are we doing about education? What are we doing about the high tuition? Even though we have a tuition freeze right now. But people are concerned. This area has a large population that is looking at their kids going to college very soon. And they are concerned about how they're going to pay for it. And quite frankly, so am I. I have the same problem. I got one going in there next year. And we know that it's going to take a lot of our resources to get our kids through college. Class size in our K through 12. I experience that with my own kids, and when they talk about how big their classes are, and 35, 36, 38 kids in a class, what are we going to do about doing that? I think there's a lot of things that need to be talked about and need to be looked at, and a lot of it has to do with funding. And I think that's something that I'm going to be able to resonate down in St. Paul, is I have to bring these issues that I hear from the constituents in this district in Anoka and Ramsey down there. And I think working with the governor and working with the Senate, I think you just have to be diligent. You have to be diligent and work with them.
Thank you. Ms. Whalen, you have 45 seconds to respond if you wish.
Okay, thank you. So I agree with some of the things my challenger is saying. I would note on class sizes and education, I've heard that at the doors as well. Parents are concerned about class sizes. And I think it's important that we maintain a class size so kids have space to learn. But we also know that an effective teacher is going to be the most important thing for our children. Studies show that if it's a choice between having a more effective teacher or reducing class sizes, you always want to go with the more effective teacher. And so looking at ways that we can improve the quality of our teachers that we draw to the area would be a #1 concern for me. And as far as funding is concerned, we do need to make sure we're funding our schools. My only thing with that is I want to make sure that we're prioritizing how we fund. So thank you.
Okay, and then Ms. Whalen, you can give your response to the question. I will repeat the question again. What are the top 3 issues you hear while campaigning? And if elected, what will you do to ensure that the 2014 House works in a collaborative way with the Governor and Senate to address those issues?
The #1 issue I hear as I'm out campaigning is that people are frustrated with their government, be it taxes, jobs, the economy, and folks don't really see how their dollars are working for them. Many people are still out of work, some have even lost their homes, and yet government continues to spend more money on frivolous things like a state office building. The #2 issue I hear as I'm out campaigning would be education. Everyone talks about reform, but moms and dads just want to know that their kids are doing well. And as the state is required to fund education, we do need to be prioritizing this issue and making sure our kids succeed. #3 issue would be healthcare. People want to be healthy, and they want access to the right care at the right time at affordable rates, which unfortunately they're not getting. Minnesota's version of Obamacare, or MNsure, has been really frustrating for people. And I think this ties in well in the part of the question that says how you should work together with other legislators. And MNsure and Obamacare are perfect examples of how not to do it. Everyone agrees our healthcare system needs reform, but the way that the DFL went about this was completely 100% partisan. Even though the other side tried to help, there was no outreach. And so in the end, there was no Republican vote for MNsure. And so we really shouldn't be surprised at the tone of the debate when it comes to healthcare. My style is much more collaborative, and I think there are ways that we can work together to fix the system. I believe Representative Abler did this well when he was chair of the Health and Human Services Committee, sitting in over 400 meetings with various individuals, learning from them, getting to know what's important to them, and ultimately he was able to keep most of those folks pretty happy while reducing spending and increasing program effectiveness. So that's what I will do for you. Listen and learn, and tackle problems head on, and at the end of the day, reach consensus on solutions that will last.
Thank you. Mr. Perovich, you have a 45-second response.
Well, I mean, the bottom line is that MNsure, it does need some fixing. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I mean, I don't think this is the final product. This is a start, and I don't believe it's the final product. We have more Minnesotans with health care right now than we had a year ago. And MNsure is one way to do it. And I don't believe that it's raising costs. I don't believe that we should be going back to where, people can't get health insurance because of pre-existing conditions. I mean, that is absolutely ridiculous. And it's unfair. I mean, that suppresses people where they can't even change jobs because they have to keep their health care, because they have somebody in their family's got a existing position. And I just don't agree with that.
Okay. The next question will go first to Ms. Whalen. If elected on November 4th, which committees would you seek to serve on? Why? And how do those committees' responsibilities mesh with concerns of your citizens and city officials?
If elected, I would like to serve on the Transportation Committee, Health and Human Services Committee, and Education Committee. I'd like to serve on the Transportation Committee because it is a core issue in our community. I would work to prioritize funding for Highway 10, one of the poorest performing corridors in the state, to not only decrease commute times, but also increase the safety of the corridor for our families. And there has been much collaboration on this issue over the past decade, and I think we have a plan in place now that is really workable, breaking the corridor into smaller projects that we can fund. For example, the Highway 10 Armstrong interchange. And the money is there, we just don't always get it. So I believe our district should have a seat at the table when those decisions are first being made. I would also like to serve on the Education Committee. As mentioned, our kids are a high priority, and I believe one of the most important things that we can do is increase local control so our teachers, our parents, and our school boards have more decision-making power, and especially in regards to spending. Right now, a lot of that money comes with strings attached. And so maybe we want to spend more on advanced math, but we're not going to be able to because we have to spend it in another area. Finally, I would like to serve on the Health and Human Services Committee because, as mentioned, MNsure, or Minnesota's Obamacare, is a common issue at the door. And I would like to just respond a little bit. So MNsure actually has seen people's premiums go up, and a lot of the people that are now insured on MNsure would have already been able to get care through Minnesota's generous programs. We already had some of the best programs in the country as far as helping folks that need health care get health care. So, and Health and Human Services touches over 1 million lives with one program or another, and I think it's important that we have people making decisions there, like Representative Abler did, that care enough to foster respect with individuals with disabilities and focus on effective services. And we really need oversight so catastrophes like what happened to Eric Dean never happen again. Overall, I will work hard for the people in our district, as Representative Abler did, listening and working with folks to prioritize spending.
Thank you. Mr. Perovich, you have a 45-second response.
I really don't have one for that. I mean, I think that, again, we're going to disagree, completely disagree on health care, and it's that simple. Again, this isn't the final word. This isn't the final product, and I think we need to continue to work together and all work together. I mean, the statement of there wasn't one Republican that voted for it, which means there wasn't one Republican that voted for people's health care. And there's something inherently wrong with that. And we have to work together as Democrats, Republicans, and we have to work for the state to try to make a good system out of it. It's here to stay, and we need to make it work right.
Okay, Mr. Perovich, then the same question to you for your 2-minute response. If elected on November 4th, which committees would you seek to serve on? Why? And how do those committees' responsibilities mesh with concerns of your citizens and city officials?
Well, equally, I would like to serve on the Transportation, Finance, and/or Policy Committee, Jobs and Economic Development, Education and Finance, or Policy. And the reasons with all those committees themselves, because I think they go hand in hand. I think the transportation enhances jobs and economic development. With good infrastructure, it brings in economic development, which brings in jobs. The education part of it is a big part of the jobs. I mean, we don't put enough emphasis on our tech schools. And if we're going to bring in, manufacturers that are actually going to plant roots here in Anoka or Ramsey, we got to have the skilled labor to be able to work there. And that's what they're looking for. And if you look out and around you, they're not there because they're hurting for skilled labor. We're hurting for skilled labor all over the country. And I think we need to put a little bit more emphasis into our tech schools because they produce some great people. Again, I want to serve on the Natural Resource Committee, which I've said in the past. We know the environment is a very special place here with our rivers and our natural resources in Minnesota are so important, and it's a huge part of my background. It's something that is near and dear to me and always will be because I hunt, I fish, I do a lot in the outdoors, and I want that for my grandkids in the future, and I want to be part of that.
Thank you. Ms. Whalen, you have a 45-second response, if you wish.
Likewise, I guess I don't have much to say. I would agree, that environment, the outdoors are really important to our community, being that, we have 10,000 lakes in our state. It's really important that we be good stewards of our environment, and I would definitely support that as well, that we're able to hunt, fish, go boating, all those things, and we want to maintain that for our kids too. So,
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, the third question goes to Mr. Perovich first. Will you actively support increased funding, either user fees or bonding, for road and transit improvements? If so, why? And if not, why not?
Well, of course I will. There's a widespread recognition, among Minnesotans and the business community that, there needs to be a comprehensive transportation package. And I think we have to work together with the business community to make this happen. I believe they did that last time. And I know, Jim, you were part of that. And, we have billions of backlog projects because we stopped investing in our infrastructure with the last administration. And it's that simple. We stopped investing. And now we're going to pay the price. The question is, how do we pay for it? Bonding is becoming less and less popular. You hear people that say they don't like bonding because the people in Duluth don't want to pay for highways in the metro. And the metro doesn't want to pay for civic centers in Rochester, with all that goes on with the bonding. And I understand that. It makes a lot of sense. I've heard that some of the calling going around is stating that if I get elected, I'm going to raise the gas tax. Well, nothing could be further from the truth. And quite frankly, the gas tax is becoming not a very viable source for funding. Our cars are getting more efficient. Our trucks are getting more efficient. Therefore, that funding starts to drop. So we have to find other sources. When you look at user fees, I don't know. Do we want user fees? I think that's something you bring to your constituents here in Anoka and Ramsey and ask them, are you interested in electronic toll roads? Things like that, from what we've heard. This all is part of a discussion that has to be had with everybody at the legislature because it affects all of us. And this has to be a bipartisan issue and brought to the table together and make it work for everybody.
Thank you. Ms. Whalen, you have a 45-second response.
Okay. Well, I will agree. I don't think a gas tax is politically feasible. And for me, I look at a lot of what has been going on in the transportation department, and it is really critical that we continue to invest in our roads and in our transportation. Highway 10, for example, needs to be brought up to standard. And how are we going to pay for that? People might not like bonding for various reasons, but when you're bonding $90 million for a state office building versus you could have bonded that for Highway 10 and we could have seen 3/4 of that project completed, I would say most folks would rather see that happen. So I think that there are important conversations that need to happen. And again, that's part of the reason I want to serve on the Transportation Committee, is so that our community has a voice when we're first making those decisions.
Okay, thank you. You now have 2 minutes to answer that same question, and I will reread it. Will you actively support increased funding, either user fees or bonding, for road and transit improvements? If so, why? And if not, why not?
I would support more bonding for our roads over other projects that may be nice but are not essential. Roads are essential, and maintaining our roads and bridges are a core function of government along with public safety and education. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem that roads are being prioritized. As I previously mentioned, we bonded last session more money. We bonded more money on a state office building than we did on roads and bridges. And that's not responsible leadership, nor does it, in my estimation, honor the state's responsibility and the state's constitution to maintain our highways. There may also be a time for increasing revenue in the form of user fees, but I don't think the state government should be doing that anytime soon. The DFL demonstrated just how hard it is to do this, as they had complete control of state government last session, and they didn't increase any user fee. They could have increased the gas tax any amount or registration fees, but it's really unpopular and hard to do that. So I think before we consider doing that, we need to really rebuild trust in our government. As a millennial, I know my generation is frustrated, and as I door knock, I hear so are folks from every generation. We're taxed out, and the state has plenty of money. It's simply a matter of prioritizing and ensuring that it goes where it's meant to. If we simply continue to raise taxes, we will run out of things to tax. There'll never be enough because someone is always going to want more. And so we need to prioritize and reform. For example, I think the state should reform the way prevailing wage is calculated. I also think we could exempt the Department of Transportation from paying sales tax. In sum, I would continue to support more bonding for our roads over other projects, and I also support user fees, as it makes sense that those who pay for something, who use something, should pay for it. But what we need to do is prioritize roads and bridges, because along with public safety and education, it's a core function of our government.
Thank you. Mr. Perovich, you have a 45-second response.
Well, I mean, I stated earlier about, how unpopular bonding is becoming. And quite frankly, I don't, what happened last session, there was property tax, 350 million in property tax relief for middle-class income people in this state by the DFL, 150 million put into a rainy day fund, tax break for businesses. So no, I don't exactly agree that taxes were raised. As far as the state office building is concerned, I believe it was $77 million for it, and quite frankly, we needed something. I mean, you have handicapped people that can't even get into the bathrooms at the Capitol with wheelchairs because of the way that it is. I mean, we can't not let people have access to our public buildings like that. And they had to do something. And the state Senate office building, quite frankly, is built for all senators, not the DFL. It's built for everybody, both parties. So, it's something that I believe that we needed to do, and we're doing it.
Okay. Thank you. We're on to our fourth and final prepared question. This one goes to Ms. Whalen first. And the question is, if given the opportunity to ask just one question of your opponent, what would that question be, and what is your answer to that question?
I actually would like to know what the biggest fish you ever caught was. And my answer to that question is a little embarrassing. It was about this big. I had to throw it back. But I love fishing. I love being out on our lakes and rivers, and I know that obviously you do as well, and I think that's something that most Minnesotans share, just the love of our outdoors, as we kind of mentioned earlier. So I think it's really important that we continue to care for those resources.
Well, actually, the biggest fish I've ever caught was a 107-pound sailfish. So,
That's impressive.
But in Minnesota, I've caught over a 6-pound largemouth bass. That's my biggest freshwater as far as bass goes. I've caught bigger northerns and whatnot. I've caught northerns that were in the 20-pound class. So, yeah, that's that's what we like to do.
All right, so that was your response. Mr. Perovich, then same question to you. If given the opportunity to ask just one question of your opponent, what would that question be, and what is your answer to that question?
Well, basically, it's, I guess I just want to thank Abigail for stepping up and running. I know, and it's not an easy thing to do. It's a lot of hard work. I'm a little concerned about some of her policies, I guess, for me, and my family. But what made you decide to actually do this?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And for me, like I mentioned kind of earlier, when I look at the state of government and just where we're at in our policies, I get a little bit concerned about the future. And right now, if we continue spending the way we are, especially like I mentioned at the federal level, my generation, I'm not counting on Social Security. I'm not, I can't bank on that, I don't think. We need to see some really positive reforms happen. And I think for the people that are going to be paying these bills a lot longer, into the future, we need to be part of that decision-making process. And so I think Representative Abler has done a fantastic job representing our community over the past 16 years. And when I learned he was stepping down, I just thought, all right, this is a good time for me to give back to my community. And it was a lot of talking with others and just learning kind of if I'd be able to have the support that would be needed. And as the support started to show itself, I felt that in my heart it was the right time.
Great, thank you. Well, as we transition to audience questions, I just want to state for the record, I have you both beat on fish because I have a 120-pound sailfish. All right. Mr. Benke, do you have some audience questions for us?
I do, and I'm looking for some good ones. There are a lot of them.
All right. And I believe what we're going to do is we'll ask the same question of each of you, and you will have a 1-minute response time. Are we going to allow rebuttals on these, or just the responses?
Yes, I think we can.
Okay.
We didn't before, but that's fine.
We'll do a 1-minute initial response with a 30-second rebuttal then. Okay. Let's see, we ended, the last question, Ms. Whalen went first, so Mr. Perovich, this one will go to you first. Again, you have 1 minute to respond. The question is, what changes would you like to see happen in Obamacare/MNsure?
I guess the changes that I'd like to see, and, again, I don't believe we're at the final product with this, is the way that the services are delivered. There's too much of when people go in for procedures into the clinic, into the hospital, wherever they are, there seems to be a different price tag for each clinic, each hospital. That all seems to change. And I think that is just not, that is not a good way to do health care. We need to work on that. We need to if you're going to go in for a certain procedure, that it costs the same at whatever facility you go to. That's one way that we're going to start saving money. When you call and ask, and do it sometime, call your insurance if you got health insurance. Call and ask them what it costs for a certain procedure. You're going to get about 50 different prices for the same thing. And something has to be done with that. We have to make sure that those procedures are level across the board. So wherever I go for a procedure, it's the same price at whatever clinic, whatever hospital I go to.
Thank you. Ms. Whalen, you have a 30-second rebuttal.
Well, so the question overall is what changes would I like to see in Obamacare and MNsure? So kind of, if I'll address the Obamacare portion of it, being that that's a federal program, there are a lot of changes I would like to see in that. First of all, I think, we could have done a lot better looking to reform healthcare. Maybe we would, instead of this super agency and all these new policies and all this new bureaucracy, just remove all Medicare, Medicaid taxes and give everyone a health savings account when they're born. And that would be, I think, solve a lot of our problems. So, and I know I'm running out of time for the rebuttal, but I get to answer the question as well?
You do.
Okay.
Yes.
So
we'll move into your 1-minute answer to the question then.
And then, with MNsure, the changes that I'd like to see are really, we probably need to start over and start from the ground up, because like I said, the DFL didn't ask for any input from the Republican Party, even though they tried. I know Representative Abler tried to help. He tried to give them some of his input and thoughts. Being in the healthcare industry himself, you would think that they might say, yeah, come to the table. But they rejected most of those ideas, and so again, it was a really partisan bill, and unfortunately, we have now a failed exchange that we actually gave the executives who were supposed to run that agency bonuses before it even rolled out, and now we have a failed exchange. People's premiums went up 47%. So again, I think we probably just need to start from the ground up with that and get input from everyone, the DFL, the Republican Party, doctors, nurses, people that are in the industry, and try and work out something that's going to be more comprehensive and really help Minnesotans.
Thank you. Mr. Perovich, you have a 30-second rebuttal if you wish.
Well, I think starting it over from scratch is a very dangerous thing to do, and I think you have to work with what you have. I don't believe that health insurance went up 47%. At least I know mine didn't. And I don't find that to be the case at all. In fact, the company I work for, there's been a couple of dozen people just in our area alone that have left the company's health insurance for MNsure because it was cheaper and it was better. And I got to tell you what, that I work for a big company, and I just don't buy what that is.
Yep, you're out of time. All right, we have another audience question. This one will go to Ms. Whalen first. Again, 1 minute to answer the question. What is your stance on the Safe Schools Act?
So if I understand the question correctly, the Safe Schools Act is also commonly known as the anti-bully bill. And unfortunately, that is an unfunded mandate in many levels, and it's going to make it really hard for our teachers and our school boards to continue to do what we want them to do, which is be more effective in the classroom. They're going to have to deal with more paperwork and more things like that. The other thing with that, unfortunately, when you look at the unfunded mandate, there's no parental notification required at all for either someone being bullied or the person who is bullied. And to me, that's kind of a core thing. If there is bullying going on, we want to make sure that the parents are notified. I don't know any parent that would say, no, I don't want to be notified. So there are some flaws with that concern me quite a bit, and those are just a couple.
All right. Mr. Perovich, you have a 30-second response.
Well, I don't, by saying it's an unfunded mandate, my understanding is it has not affected the business of the school whatsoever in District 11. I think this is more of a student, teacher, administration training, so they know what to look for, and they know how to help that child and take care of that situation. If the parents aren't being notified, I guess I have to agree with that they probably should be.
All right. You, Mr. Perovich, then have 1 minute to respond to the question, what is your stance on the Safe Schools Act?
Well, I actually support it, and I think it's something that, unfortunately, we need. I obviously grew up in a different time when we didn't have to have things like that. But I guess in today's world that we have to have that. We have to ensure that kids are safe at school. And I think that's highly important. They have to be safe at school. We can't send our kids to school and worry about whether or not they're going to be safe because of who they are. And unfortunately, we have to have things like this, and I do support it and will continue to support it.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Whalen, you have a 30-second response.
I think everyone agrees that we need to have safe schools. I think that teachers want their students to be safe, and the school board wants students to be safe. And so the question for me that's not the question. It's really a matter of how we go about that. And when we're talking about mandating that teachers do this sort of reporting and paperwork, and you're going to have to hire someone potentially to manage all the bureaucracy of what the state's putting on our local schools, that to me is the biggest concern. So yes, we need safe schools, we need safe students, but how we're going about it, I think this is the wrong way to do it.
All right. The next question then goes to Mr. Perovich first. Looking at the term effective teachers, what does that mean in a way that legislation in St. Paul would affect, specifically regarding teacher tenure?
Well, I don't know. Well, if I understand the question correct,
I think what the question is, how can legislation in St. Paul affect the effectiveness of our teachers, and specifically regarding tenure?
I don't think tenure is an issue with being an effective teacher. I think for me, what the issue is with the schools and what I think and what I believe in when it comes to teachers is that an effective teacher is a teacher that we allow to actually teach in their class and control their classroom. The teacher is the best tool we have. but you have to allow that teacher to teach in their class. You know, again, when I grew up and went through school, the teachers were in charge. And they're the ones that decided, you know, how this was going to go, how the test was going to go, the standardized testing, things like that that I'm against. Because I know that there's somebody in that classroom, that teacher, who is highly trained and knows what they're doing. That's what we have to count on. I don't think that tenure or legislation, I believe that's just something that doesn't affect it.
All right, Ms. Whalen, you have a 30-second response.
Well, I think that we do need effective teachers, obviously, and so I would agree that over time, the state has probably put too much of its ideas and things into the school system where if we just left the teacher alone, they'd be able to do a little bit more. And that's why I'm very supportive of local control for schools, local control in regards to funding, and why I'm so opposed to unfunded mandates that do take teachers away from the classroom and away from actually teaching the students. So I might just go into the rest of.
All right, we'll
my
start
answer
your
to the question.
1-minute response to that question. Thank you.
So, and for me, when we look at effective teachers and how St. Paul can affect them, you know, we want to look at teacher evaluations, and when teachers are up for tenure, how are we evaluating them? And I've talked to lots of teachers. I'm actually shocked at how many teachers are in our district when I door knock, and they don't mind being held accountable, just like in any other position. Teachers don't mind being held accountable, but they want it to be with an integrated approach and not just a standardized test or something like that. They want to have some say in the process. So I think what we need to do is invite teachers in, say, you know, what's the most effective way for you to be evaluated so that we can all have effective teachers in the classroom, because teachers want to be effective and they want their peers to be effective as well, so that they know the students are getting the best education possible.
Thank you. Mr. Perovich, you have a 30-second response.
Well, I mean, it's, again, there's a lot of factors involved with a teacher being effective with their students. Class size is a huge factor. When you can give more time to a troubled student, you know, your results are a lot better. That's something that we have to work on. I believe for many years that, you know, state mandates, federal standards, you know, No Child Left Behind failures have nothing but gotten in the way of what the teachers are there to do. They're there to educate our kids and help get them ready for the future. So that's where I stand with that. We need to let them do their thing.
Thank you. We have another audience question. This one will go to Ms. Whalen first. Could you please talk about your position on daycare unionization? Would you have voted for it?
I would not have voted for daycare unionization for a few reasons. First of all, with daycare unionization, we're looking at moms, for the most part, who run a business out of their home. And most of these moms are doing this, you know, just to have a little bit of extra money. And now the state comes in and says, you need to be part of a dues-paying union. And to me, that's not the responsibility of the state government to tell a mom or a small business owner that. Furthermore, this is the only that I'm aware of union where the employees, so say that it is a little bit of a larger daycare and they have employees, those employees don't pay union dues, only the owner does. So it was a very odd way to go about unionization, and to me, I just don't think that it's going to be very beneficial, and it doesn't help, it doesn't help the moms or those kids to have them now paying extra dues versus when they probably just went into business to get a little bit of extra money to begin with. So,
Mr. Perovich, you have a 30-second response.
Well, I don't know. I think what my vote would have been on that, I probably would have voted to allow them to unionize if that's what they so chose to do. It is a voluntary program to be part of the union. This isn't mandated. They don't have to do this. It's voluntary. If they decide they want to join the union, that's up to them, which is the way it should be. But allowing them to have that decision and have that in front of them to be able to make that choice is the right thing to do. I mean, I don't.
Mr. Perovich, you're out of your response, but you have 1 minute to
I'll
answer
just
the
keep-
question,
I'll just
so you
keep
can
going.
keep rolling.
I don't think that we have the right, as a society, to take that liberty away from them. And I think that's what it is when you tell them that they cannot unionize or they cannot collectively bargain. I believe that's a complete violation of their liberty and their rights. And when a program like this becomes completely voluntary, then I don't see any issues with this, and I support it completely.
Thank you. Ms. Whalen, you have a 30-second response.
Yeah, I would just like to reiterate that I don't think that the state government should have been a part of this process to begin with. If the daycare moms or the owners wanted to unionize going outside of the state, they didn't need the state to tell them yes or no. The state this shouldn't have been an issue for them. Unfortunately, with the unions and the unionization, it became a really a larger issue than I think it needed to be.
All right, I'm being told we have time for one more question. So this will be the last question from the audience. This one will go to Mr. Perovich first. What would you do to improve the inequity in funding that has not been done before?
Can you read that one more time?
What would you do to improve the inequity for funding, so the inequity to this part of the region in funding that has not been done before?
It has not been done before? It's an interesting question. It becomes a discussion in the needs and the wants. And quite frankly, it becomes the way that you vote down at the legislature, I believe. I mean, it happened in 2008. And I, for one, will always vote this district. I will always vote this district. And it shouldn't be about Republican or Democrat. It should be about how we make our communities a better place. And I think the more discussion we have, the more talk we have, the more fight we have, and stand up and holler and yell and scream. We need to fix the inequity that we have right now. We're here. We're part of the metro.
Your
And
time is up.
I want them to know that.
Thank you. Ms. Whalen, you have a 30-second response.
Well, I would definitely agree that we need to be standing up for our district and our community down in St. Paul. And looking at the inequities in funding, I'm just thinking of an example with our roads. You look at the Southern Metro, and they've constantly gotten more funding for their roads than us. And so I think doing something different, I can't say for sure every single thing that has been tried, but what I think we should continue to do is bring legislators from the Northern Metro together, build coalitions that will help us work together so we have the voting block to get the funding and to vote together to get the funding that we need for our roads and bridges. That would definitely be my number one thing, and another reason I want to serve on the Transportation Committee.
Okay, and then Ms. Whalen, you have a 1-minute response to that question too, if you have more to add.
I can't think of anything more to add at the moment, but again, definitely putting the district first, definitely making sure that our community has a say at the table, and that if there are concerns that come from other areas of the state, that we work together as legislators, recognizing that we do want to make each of our individuals' communities better, and we're also serving the state as a whole, so how can we work together to make sure that that happens?
Thank you. And Mr. Perovich, you have a 30-second response.
Well, I mean, I obviously, I agree that you have to have collaboration, and you have to be I believe very, very diligent and very forceful. And not just with your own colleagues, but on both sides of the aisle. It's time. We have issues up here that need to be addressed. And I think it's time that happen. And I know it's been looked at and it's been tried, but we do need some changes to make that happen. And I think the changes of this year. It's time to do something different and get down there and fight. And like I said, we're here. Anoka and Ramsey is here. And we're not going anywhere.
Thank you. All right, that concludes our audience question segment, and we're going to move on to our closing statements. We'll do the closing statements in the reverse order of the opening statements. So, Ms. Whalen, you will begin your closing statement, and you have 1 minute.
I just want to say thank you again to everyone for being here. I'm so honored to have the opportunity to speak before you on these issues that are important to our community. Again, I'm running because I really think it's time for the bill payers to get on board and have a say in the political process. I hear how frustrated people are with government, how they don't feel they have a voice. And, you know, with one-party control, we really have a lot of people who feel their voice has been silenced. I felt that way, and I know people in my generation have felt that way. We have a huge mess on our hands. Yet as I'm out knocking on doors, I've realized more and more that not only does my generation need a voice, but so does the stay-at-home mom who just wants her kids to have a good education. So does the guy sitting in traffic twice as long as he needs to be. So does the small business owner struggling to make ends meet. And I can be that voice. I'll tell you, I will work hard. I will work with you and for you on issues that are important to you because they're important to me as well. And so I hope to earn your support here tonight. I want to encourage you to vote Whalen on November 4th. And just thank you again to the North Metro Mayors Association for hosting this event, and God bless you all.
Thank you. Mr. Perovich, you have a closing statement, 1 minute.
Thank you. I want to thank everybody for coming, for taking the time to come here tonight. I know you're all busy, and it's greatly appreciated, and I like seeing the people here. I want to thank Bob Benke and Sarah for taking the time to do this and put this together. Abigail, thanks for being here. You know, I think what's really important is the state is on a positive move right now. We're moving forward. We're going in a positive direction. You know, we repaid the schools, the $2.7 billion. You know, there's a tuition freeze. We have all-day, everyday kindergarten in place, safe and supported schools. You know, we got the MNsure. We're raised the minimum wage. I mean, I think we're moving in a really good direction, and I want to keep that going. And I'm going to work darn hard to make sure that happens for us right here in Anoka and Ramsey, because it's our community, and we need a good, strong voice down in St. Paul. And that's why I ask that you vote for Perovich on November 4th, because I'm going to go down there. I'm going to work my tail off for us. Thanks.
Thank you. Well, that brings our forum to a close for this evening. On behalf of the North Metro Mayors Association, I want to thank both of our candidates, Abigail Whalen and Peter Perovich. We appreciate you participating. I also want to thank our audience for participating as well tonight. You submitted great questions, and that helped enhance the information that we were able to get out to voters. Last but not least, I want to thank the staff from QCTV and the City of Ramsey for providing logistical and production support this evening. And before we sign off here, I also want to let folks know that the League of Women Voters will be hosting a candidate forum for Ramsey City Council candidates on Monday, October 13th at 6:30 p.m. here in the Ramsey City Council chambers. So for folks watching who are from Ramsey, you may want to tune into that event as well. Again, thank you all for participating, and good night.